The silence in the Grand Tribunal was suffocating. Admiral Marcus Vane stood alone in the center of the massive spherical chamber, suspended in a gravity well that held him like an insect trapped in amber. Around him, rising in endless tiers that disappeared into darkness, sat the representatives of 12,000 civilizations. Their eyes, some glowing, some compound, some nothing more than sensor clusters, all fixed upon the single human who had dared to stand before them. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering. It floated in the void between stars, a structure so vast that entire cities could fit within its walls. Holographic displays flickered with translations in thousands of languages. The air hummed with the whispered conversations of beings who had traveled across the galaxy to witness this moment. High, Arbiter Colvith descended from his elevated platform, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into 1,000 fractured rainbows. He was ancient beyond human comprehension, a being who had presided over this council for 3,000 years. His voice, when he spoke, resonated through every speaker in the chamber, translated simultaneously into languages that human tongues could never pronounce. Admiral Marcus Vane of Earth, Colvith said, each word heavy with judgment. You stand accused of the greatest act of unprovoked aggression this council has witnessed in 9,000 years. Vane did not move. His dress uniform, dark blue with gold trim, seemed almost primitive against the technological wonders surrounding him. But his eyes remained steady, fixed on the towering crystalline figure before him. The Valorian Dominion sent a distress signal, Colvith continued. Their colony on Nexer 7 reported a catastrophic plague. Millions of their citizens were dying. They requested humanitarian assistance, medical ships, relief supplies, the compassion that this council expects from all member species. A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. From the Valorian section, Chancellor Vorex watched with barely concealed satisfaction, his reptilian scales gleaming under the chamber lights. Instead of aid, Colvith's voice grew harder. You arrived with 400 warships. You destroyed the Valorian defense fleet. You bombarded their orbital stations into debris. You have brought war to a region that has known peace for 10,000 years. The murmur became a roar. Insectoid delegates clicked their mandibles in outrage. Gaseous beings swirled with agitated colors. Representatives from 100 different species called for immediate action against humanity. But Admiral Vane smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the expression of a man who had been waiting for this moment, who had walked willingly into what appeared to be a trap because he knew something his accusers did not. May I speak, High Arbiter? Vane's voice cut through the chaos, quiet but somehow carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Colvith raised a crystalline appendage, and silence fell instantly. You may. Vane took a step forward in the gravity well. Several delegates recoiled, as if expecting him to produce a weapon. But his hands remained clasped behind his back. You call it unprovoked, he said. That is a fascinating choice of words. Tell me, High Arbiter, did the Valorian Dominion explain what they planned to do with our medical ships once they arrived? For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Colvith's fractured features. From the Valorian platform, Chancellor Vorex rose, his voice sharp with indignation. This is absurd deflection. Humanity has committed genocide and now seeks to distract from their crimes with baseless accusations. I was not finished. Chancellor. Vane did not raise his voice, but something in his tone made even Vorex pause. You see, the Galactic Council has existed for 90,000 years. You have watched species rise and fall. You have arbitrated wars and brokered peace treaties. You consider yourselves the pinnacle of galactic civilization. He turned slowly, addressing not just Colvith, but every delegate in the chamber. But in all that time, has any species ever truly surprised you? The question hung in the air, unanswered. 3 months earlier, a message had arrived at Earth's unified command. Ambassador Elena Cross remembered it clearly. She had been reviewing trade agreements when her terminal flashed with priority override codes. Transmission showed devastation. Valorian civilians, their reptilian bodies covered in lesions, lay dying in overcrowded medical facilities. Children cried for parents who would never answer. Medical staff, themselves infected, worked until they collapsed. "We beg the humans for assistance," Chancellor Vorix's recorded voice pleaded. "Your medical technology is different from ours. Perhaps it can save our people. In the name of Galactic Brotherhood, we ask for your help." Elena had wept. Humanity was new to the stars, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 40 years ago. They were still building their reputation, still proving themselves worthy of their place among ancient civilizations. This was their chance to show the galaxy what humanity stood for. She presented the request to the Unified Council that same day. The vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would send its finest medical vessels, its best doctors, everything the Valorians needed. But Admiral Vane had not voted yes. Elena found him afterward, standing in the observation deck of Strategic Command, watching the stars that humanity had only recently learned to reach. "They are dying, Admiral," she said. "Millions of them. We have the ability to help." "Perhaps," Vane replied without turning. "But something about this troubles me." "What could possibly trouble you about saving lives?" Vane finally faced her. His eyes, she noticed, held none of the certainty she expected. Instead, she saw calculation, suspicion, the instincts of a man who had survived too many battles to trust appearances. "The Valorian Dominion is one of the oldest powers in the galaxy," he said. "Their medical technology surpasses ours in almost every way. They have cured diseases that humanity has not yet encountered. Why would they need our help?" Elena opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She had not considered this. Before either could speak again, Director Thomas Gray of Earth's Intelligence Division entered the observation deck. His face was grim. "You need to see this," he said. "Both of you." In a secure briefing room, Gray played an intercepted transmission. The encryption had taken his best analysts weeks to partially decode. What they found made Lena's blood run cold, through static and interference. A Valorian voice spoke. "Once the human ships enter our space, we execute Phase 2. The Council will have no choice but to authorize military action. Humanity will be contained before they become a threat." The transmission cut to silence. Elena stared at the blank screen. "Phase 2? What is Phase 2? Gray shook his head. "We do not know. But whatever it is, the Valorians have been planning it for years. The plague, Ambassador, the dying civilians, the desperate pleas for help, all of it was manufactured." "That is impossible," Elena whispered, but even as she spoke, doubt crept into her voice. Admiral Vane stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. "Not impossible. Calculated. Someone wants humanity to send ships into Valorian space. Ships that will be surrounded by hostile territory, cut off from reinforcement, vulnerable." He turned to Gray. "Find out what Phase 2 is. Use every resource we have." Then he looked at Elena, and in his eyes she saw something that terrified her more than any alien threat: resolution. "And prepare the fleet," Vane said. "If they want a war, we will give them one they never expected." Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to believe in diplomacy, in the goodness of the Council, in the possibility of peaceful resolution. But the evidence before her could not be denied. Humanity was walking into a trap, and now they had to decide whether to spring it on their own terms. On the holographic display behind them, the map of Valorian space glowed ominously. Deep in the heart of the galaxy, surrounded by the territories of 7 other ancient species, If human ships entered that region, they would be isolated, vulnerable, unless they did something no one expected, unless they arrived ready for war. The station called. Thessaly Prime floated in neutral space, a massive wheel of metal and light that served as the galaxy's unofficial marketplace for secrets. Here, in shadowed corridors far from council oversight, information was currency, and trust was a commodity few could afford. Ambassador Elena Cross walked through crowds of alien beings, her human features drawing curious glances. Humanity was still a novelty in the wider galaxy. Most species had never encountered one in person. She kept her pace steady, her expression neutral. As she approached the meeting point, the private chamber was shielded from every known form of surveillance. Inside waited Merrick, an information broker belonging to the Sindari species. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as Elena entered, and his elongated fingers trembled slightly against the table surface. The Sindari were empaths. They could sense lies the way humans sensed heat. It made them valuable as information brokers. It also made them dangerous to deceive. "You came alone," Merrick said, his voice a whisper of sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "That was either brave or foolish." "I came because you said you had information about the Valorian distress call," Elena replied, taking the seat across from him. "Information that could not be transmitted. Information that could save human lives." Merrick's 4 eyes darted toward the door, then back to her face. "What IKN? How could end my life, and the lives of my family? The beings I speak of do not forgive those who reveal their secrets. Then why contact me at all?" The Sindari was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. "Because what they planned is wrong. And because I have watched your species from afar, Ambassador. Humans are strange. You help others even when it costs you. You fight for beings you have never met. This is unusual in a galaxy where most species think only of themselves." He leaned forward, his multiple eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "There is no plague on Nexer 7. The entire distress call was fabricated. The Valorians, along with 6 other species of the Inner Circle, have been watching humanity since you achieved faster-than-light travel. Your progress terrifies them. In 40 years, you accomplished what took them millennia. They believe that in another century, you will surpass them all." Elena felt cold spreading through her chest. "What are they planning?" "They call it Phase 2. Merrick's voice dropped even lower. "Your medical ships will enter Valorian space. Once there, they will be captured. Your crews will be killed. The ships will then be modified and used to attack a neutral species, the Vesari, who have extensive trade relationships with humanity." He paused, letting the horror of his words sink in. "The evidence will be overwhelming. Human ships, human weapon signatures, human aggression. The Yasari will demand justice. The Council will vote to contain or eliminate the human threat. By the time the truth emerges, if it ever does, your species will be shattered." Elena sat in stunned silence. The scope of the conspiracy was almost too vast to comprehend. Ancient civilizations, beings who had walked among the stars while humanity was still discovering fire, plotting the destruction of an entire species simply because they were afraid. Why would they go to such lengths? She finally managed .RRICK, let out a sound that might have been laughter or might have been despair. "Because they have done it before. Many times. The Inner Circle has controlled the galaxy for 90,000 years, Ambassador. Any species that threatens their dominance is eliminated. The Meridians, famous for their science, suffered a tragic accident that destroyed their homeworld. The Vandral, renowned warriors, were manipulated into a civil war that nearly exterminated them. Dozens of species, Hundreds of worlds, all eliminated or contained. He reached across the table and pressed a data crystal into her palm. This contains what evidence I could gather. It is not complete, but it is enough to prove I speak the truth. Elena clutched the crystal, her mind racing. I need to return to Earth. I need to warn my government. Go quickly, Merrick said, rising from his seat. The inner circle has eyes everywhere. If they discover we spoke, neither of us will survive the day. 2 weeks later, Elena stood before Earth's unified command, the data crystal's contents displayed on a massive holographic screen. Admiral Vane watched in grim silence. Director Gray's face was pale with rage. They planned to murder our people and blame us for a war we did not start, Gray said, his voice tight with controlled fury. This is not diplomacy. This is assassination on a galactic scale. We could expose them, Galena suggested. Take this evidence to the Council. Show the galaxy what the inner circle truly is. Vane shook his head slowly. The inner circle controls the Council. They have for millennia. Any evidence we present will be dismissed, altered, or buried. They will claim we fabricated it to justify our own aggression. Then what do we do? Elena demanded. We cannot simply accept our destruction. Admiral Vane turned to face her, and in his eyes she saw the cold calculation of a warrior preparing for battle. We do exactly what they expect, he said. We send ships to Valorian space, but not medical vessels. We send our entire fleet. We catch them in the act. We document everything, and we broadcast it to the galaxy before they can suppress it. Gray stepped forward. That is an act of war, Admiral. The moment our warships enter Valorian space without authorization, we violate 17 council treaties. I know. Vane's voice held no hesitation. But if we play by their rules, we lose. They have been manipulating those rules for 90,000 years. Sometimes, Director, you have to break the law to expose the criminals. The room fell silent as the weight of his words settled over them. They were talking about starting a war against enemies who outnumbered them, outgunned them, and had controlled the galaxy since before humans learned to. Build pyramids. But the alternative was extinction. Elena thought of the families who would send their children to serve on those warships, the lives that would be lost, the blood that would be spilled. Was humanity's survival worth such a price? She looked at Vane, and she knew he was asking himself the same question. But unlike her, he had already found his answer. How long do we have? She asked quietly. The Valorians expect our medical convoy in 3 weeks, Gray replied. We have that long to gather our forces without alerting the inner circle to our true intentions. Vane nodded. Then we begin immediately. Director Gray, I want every ship in our fleet ready for combat deployment. Ambassador Cross, you will return to the Council Station. Continue acting as if nothing has changed. We need the Valorians to believe their trap remains unsprung. Elena hesitated. And if I am discovered? If they realize we know? Vane met her gaze steadily. Then run, Ambassador. Run as fast as you can. Because the moment they know we are coming for them, they will do everything in their power to stop us. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in the observation lounge of the Council Station, watching ships pass through the void beyond the transparent walls. She had played her role perfectly. She had smiled at Valorian diplomats who planned to murder her people. She had discussed trade agreements with species that had voted for humanity's destruction. In secret chambers she was never meant to know existed, but she was not alone in her deception. A young Visari, delegate named Lyra, approached her with the caution of someone carrying a dangerous secret. The Visari were graceful beings, their silver skin marked with patterns that shifted like liquid metal. Ambassador Cross, Lyra said quietly. I have noticed irregularities in the inner circle's recent voting patterns. Something is wrong. I can feel it. Elena studied the young delegate carefully. The Vesari were meant to be one of the victims in the inner circle's plan. If she could be trusted, she could be an invaluable ally. What kind of irregularities? Lyra glanced around, ensuring no one was listening. Emergency sessions held without proper notification. Encrypted communications between species that traditionally despise each other. Resources being moved to positions that make no strategic sense unless... She paused, fear flickering across her silver features. Unless what? Elena pressed. Unless they are preparing for war. Elena made her decision in that moment. She pulled Lyra into a private alcove and told her everything. The fabricated plague. The conspiracy. The fleet that was even now gathering in the darkness between stars, waiting for the signal to launch. Lyra listened in horrified silence. When Elena finished, tears streamed down her silver face. My people, she whispered, they were going to blame your species for attacking us. They were going to use our deaths to justify destroying you. We can stop them, Elena said. But I need your help. You have access to Council communication archives. If you can retrieve the encrypted transmissions between Inner Circle members, we will have proof that cannot be denied. Lyra nodded, her expression hardening with determination. I will do it. For my people. For yours. For everyone they have ever hurt. That night, Lyra accessed the archives from a terminal deep within the Council station. Her fingers moved quickly, copying files that should have been beyond her clearance level. The Inner Circle's arrogance had made them careless. They never imagined that anyone would dare to challenge them. The data crystal filled with evidence. Conversations about the conspiracy. Plans for Phase 2. Records of previous operations. Against other species stretching back. Thousands of years. And then an alert flashed red across her. Screen. Unauthorized access detected. Somewhere in the station. A security protocol activated. Doors began to seal. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Lyra grabbed the crystal and ran. Behind her, Valorian soldiers emerged from the shadows, their weapons drawn. They were operating far outside their jurisdiction. But here, in the heart of the Inner Circle's power, jurisdiction meant nothing. Only survival mattered now. Lyra ran through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, her silver skin glistening with sweat that the Vesari shed only in moments of extreme terror. Behind her, the heavy footsteps of Valorian soldiers echoed off metal walls. They were gaining. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with a maintenance drone. The machine beeped and prot. Saint as she shoved past it, sending it spinning into the path of her pursuers. She heard curses in the Valorian tongue, then the crash of bodies against metal. Precious seconds. She used them. Ambassador Cross's quarters were 3 levels up. Lyra's lungs burned as she climbed emergency stairs that most beings on the station never used. The Valorians would expect her to take the lifts. Perhaps that would buy her more time. She burst through the door onto level 7 and sprinted down the residential corridor. Diplomatic quarters lined both sides, each protected by the ancient laws of Council sovereignty. If she could reach Elena before they caught her, the Valorians would need to violate 1,000 years of tradition to take her. Alana's door was ahead. Lyra slammed her palm against the recognition panel, gasping out her name and her emergency code. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the door slid open, and Alana's hands pulled her inside. They found me, Lyra managed, thrusting the data crystal into Elena's grasp. Archives, everything. They are coming. Elena's face went pale, but her voice remained steady. She activated diplomatic immunity protocols, sending an emergency signal that would seal her quarters against intrusion. The door's security systems hummed to life, forming barriers that should have been impenetrable. Outside, heavy footsteps stopped. Fists pounded against the reinforced metal. "Ambassador Cross," a Valorian voice called. "We know you are harboring a criminal. Surrender her to us immediately." Elena moved to her communication terminal and opened a secure channel to Earth. Admiral Vane's face appeared on the screen, his expression tightening as he saw the fear in her eyes. "They know," Elena said simply. "The timeline has accelerated. We have perhaps 72 hours before the Inner Circle discovers the full extent of what we have learned." Vane nodded once. "Understood. The fleet launches in 1 hour." 1 hour? Elena's voice cracked. "That is not enough time." "I cannot." "You need to survive," Vane interrupted. "Get off that station by any means necessary. We are coming." The channel closed. Elena turned to Lyra, who had collapsed against the wall, her breathing ragged. "Can you move?" Lyra nodded weakly. "I think so. But how do we escape? They will be watching every exit." Elena pulled open a hidden compartment in her wall and withdrew 2 devices that looked like slim silver bracelets. "Emergency transport beacons. They will alert my shuttle to move to the nearest docking port and prepare for immediate departure." She clasped one bracelet around Lyra's wrist, the other around her own. "When the door opens, run. Do not stop for anything. Do not look back. If we get separated, head for Docking Bay 7. My shuttle systems will recognize you." Lyra swallowed hard. "And if they catch us?" Elena met her eyes with a determination that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than fear. "They will not catch us. Because if we fail, humanity dies. And I will not that happen." The pounding on the door intensified. Somewhere, someone was overriding the diplomatic locks. They had maybe 2 minutes. "On my mark," Elena said, positioning herself beside the door controls. 3, 2, 1. The door exploded inward as the Valorians finally breached the security protocols. But Elena was ready. She hurled a flash grenade through the opening, filling the corridor with blinding light. Valorian soldiers stumbled backward, their reptilian eyes overwhelmed by the sudden brilliance. Elena grabbed Lyra's hand and ran. They sprinted through the chaos of the council station, past confused delegates who had no idea why Valorian soldiers were chasing a human ambassador through neutral territory. Alarms began to wail. Security barriers descended. The station's automated systems were responding to the breach of diplomatic immunity. But the Inner Circle's reach extended further than any system could account for. At every turn, more soldiers appeared. Doors that should have been open were sealed. Lifts that should have carried them to safety remained frozen in place. Someone was controlling the station's systems, turning the entire structure into a trap. They reached Docking Bay 7 through a ventilation shaft, emerging behind cargo containers that shielded them from immediate view. Alana's shuttle waited on its launch pad, engines warm, systems ready. They were so close. A plasma bolt struck the container beside them, sending fragments of metal spinning through the air. Lyra cried out as a piece sliced across her arm, silver blood welling from the wound. Elena did not hesitate. She lifted Lyra onto her shoulder and ran for the shuttle, firing blindly behind her with a sidearm she had drawn from her diplomatic bag. The weapon was supposed to be ceremonial. Today it was anything but. They reached the shuttle's ramp as more fire erupted around them. Elena all but threw Lyra into the passenger compartment, then dove for the pilot's seat. Her fingers flew across the controls, initiating emergency launch protocols that would bypass every safety check. The shuttle screamed off the launch pad, blasting through the docking bay's containment field and into open space. Behind them, pursuit ships launched from other bays, their weapon systems locking on to the fleeing vessel. Alana pushed the engines beyond their limits. Weaving through traffic around the station, using larger ships as cover. A blast struck their rear shields, sending warning lights cascading across every display. "Hold on," she shouted to Lyra. "This is going to be rough." She activated the faster-than-light drive at minimum safe distance from the station, something pilots were trained never to do. The consequences could be catastrophic. The ship could tear itself apart. Reality itself could bend in unpredictable ways. But the alternative was certain death. The stars stretched into lines, then vanished entirely as the shuttle punched through the fabric of space. Elena let out a breath she did not realize she had been holding. They had escaped, but they were not safe yet. Across the galaxy, at the edge of human-controlled space, the fleet had already assembled. 400 warships hung in the darkness between stars, their running lights creating a constellation of human defiance. Admiral Vane stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, humanity's flagship. It was a vessel built not just for war, but for truth. Its communication arrays could broadcast on every frequency known to galactic civilization. When the time came, it would show the entire galaxy what the Inner Circle had done. Commander Diana Wells reported from her station. "All ships confirm ready status, Admiral. Jump coordinates are locked. We are waiting for your order." Vane looked at the holographic display showing their destination. Valorian space, the heart of the conspiracy. A region controlled by beings who had ruled the galaxy since before humans learned to write. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned. By every logical measure, they should not be doing this. But logic had never stopped humanity before. "Signal all ships," Vane said, his voice steady as stone. "We jump in 60 seconds. And when we arrive, we show them what happens when you threaten Earth." The countdown began. On every ship in the fleet, humans prepared for the battle of their lives. Some prayed. Some checked their weapons one final time. Some simply held photographs of loved ones they might never see again. 50 seconds. 40, 30. Vane thought of Elena, somewhere in the void between stars, racing to escape enemies who wanted her dead. He thought of Earth, vulnerable and unknowing, trusting its fleet to protect it. He thought of every human who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered what waited among them. Now they would find out. 10 seconds. 5. "All ships," Vane announced over the fleet-wide channel. "Jump." 400 warships vanished from human space. Their destination a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. In the Grand Tribunal. Chancellor Vorex received a priority message on his personal terminal. He read it once, then again, certain there must be some mistake. Human warships. 400 of them. Entering Valorian space. Not medical vessels. Not relief supplies. An invasion fleet. For a long moment, Vorex sat frozen. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be predictable, compassionate, weak. Instead, they had declared war. A smile spread slowly across his reptilian face. The humans had made a terrible mistake. By attacking without provocation, they had given the Inner Circle exactly what they needed. The Council would condemn them unanimously. Every neutral species would side against this dangerous new threat. He opened a channel to his defense commanders. Mobilize the combined fleet. Intercept the human vessels at Nexer. Then he leaned back in his chair, already composing the speech he would deliver after the human fleet was destroyed. But somewhere in the darkness of space, Admiral Vane was smiling too. Because Chancellor Vorex did not know about the broadcast. He did not know about the evidence. He did not know that humanity had not come to fight a battle. They had come to expose a 90-thousand-year-old lie, and the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet emerged from faster than light, travel at the edge of the Nexer system, and for one brief moment, the universe held its breath. Before them stretched the combined might of the inner circle. Over 1,000 warships arranged in defensive formations around the pale blue world they had claimed to be dying. Admiral Vane studied the enemy deployment on the tactical display. Dreadnoughts from the Valorian Dominion, carrier groups from the Kalashi Empire, destroyer squadrons from 4 other species whose names most humans could not pronounce. They outnumbered his fleet 3-to-1 in a straight fight. Humanity would lose, but Vane had never intended to fight straight. "Commander Wells," he said calmly, "activate the Prometheus array. It is time to tell the truth." Throughout the flagship, engineers brought the massive communication systems online. Signals began broadcasting on every frequency across the galaxy. Live feeds, decoded transmissions, historical records, evidence of crime stretching back thousands of years. The broadcast hit the council station like a shockwave. Delegates who had been going about their daily business suddenly found their terminals flooded with footage. Valorian soldiers attacking diplomatic quarters, encrypted conversations revealing the conspiracy in the inner circle's own words, records of species that had been exterminated, worlds that had been destroyed, civilizations that had been erased from history. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in stunned silence as everything they believed about their government collapsed. On the Sari Prime, citizens poured into the streets, demanding answers. On the Meridian homeworld, survivors of their supposed accident wept as they finally learned the truth about what had killed their ancestors. On a dozen other worlds, species that had suffered in silence for millennia suddenly realized they were not alone. They had all been victims. Now they knew who was responsible. Chancellor Vorex received damage reports from his communications officers with growing horror. The broadcast was spreading faster than they could suppress it. For every frequency they jammed, 3 more opened. For every terminal they shut down, 10 more activated. The carefully constructed order of 90,000 years was crumbling in real time. "Destroy them," Vorex snarled at his fleet commanders. "Destroy them before this spreads further." The inner circle fleet surged forward, weapons systems charging. Thousands of plasma cannons, missile tubes, and energy projectors locked onto the human vessels. The Battle of Nexer had begun. Human ships scattered like leaves in a storm, their formations breaking into smaller groups that were harder to target. Unlike the inner circle's vessels, which had been built according to standardized galactic designs, human warships operated on principles that were entirely different. Their shields absorbed energy in ways conventional weapons were not designed to overcome. Their engines pushed them through maneuvers that seemed impossible to pilots trained in orthodox tactics. But numbers still mattered. For every enemy ship that fell, 2 more took its place. Human vessels began to suffer damage. Destroyers vanished in balls of flame. Cruisers listed with shattered hulls. The Prometheus itself took hits that sent crew members flying from their stations. On the bridge, Admiral Vane gripped the arms of his command chair as another impact rocked the flagship. "Status report. Shields at 40%, Wells responded, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. "We have lost 37 ships. Enemy casualties estimated at 100, but they have reserves we do not." Vane watched the tactical display with grim determination. They were buying time for the broadcast to spread, but they could not buy much more. In perhaps 20 minutes, the inner circle would overwhelm them through sheer weight of numbers. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, new contacts emerging at the system edge. Multiple signatures. Unknown configuration. Vane's heart sank. Reinforcements for the enemy. They had anticipated this possibility, but hoped it would not happen so quickly. Then the sensor officer's voice changed, confusion giving way to disbelief. "Admiral, the new contacts are not inner circle vessels. They are..." They are the Sari. On the display, dozens of silver ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. Behind them came more vessels, designs that Vane recognized from historical archives. Meridian science vessels, supposedly extinct for 2,000 years. Vandrel warships, which should have been destroyed in their civil war. Ships from species that the Inner Circle had tried to eliminate, failed to fully exterminate, and then forgotten. The victims had come for justice. A voice crackled over the communication channel, translated into Earth Standard. Human fleet, this is Commander Lyra of the Thesari Concordat. We received your broadcast. We have brought everyone we could find. Vane felt something he had not allowed himself to feel since the battle began. Hope. Commander Lyra, he responded, your timing is excellent. Target the Valorian command ships. If we take out their leadership, their coalition will fragment. The Allied fleet swept into battle with the fury of the long oppressed. The Sari vessels coordinated with human squadrons as if they had trained together for years. Meridian ships provided electronic warfare support that blinded enemy sensors. Vandrel warriors threw themselves against the Inner Circle fleet, with the desperate courage of those who had nothing left to lose. Chancellor Vorex watched his tactical display with growing disbelief. Impossible. These species should have been broken, scattered, incapable of mounting any kind of resistance. Yet here they were, fighting alongside the humans as if united by a common cause. He realized with dawning horror, they were. The Inner Circle fleet began to fracture. Ships that had been promised easy victory found themselves overwhelmed by enemies who fought with the strength of righteous anger. Crews that had been told they were defending civilization realized they were defending oppressors. Entire squadrons surrendered rather than continue fighting. Others turned on their commanders, refusing orders to fire on vessels crewed by species that had done nothing wrong. The coalition that had ruled the galaxy for 90,000 years fell apart in a matter of hours. In the chaos, Elena Cross's shuttle emerged from faster-than-light travel and raced toward the Prometheus. She had pushed the little vessel far beyond its design limits, and it showed. Hull breaches dotted its surface. Warning lights covered every display. But she was alive. Vane met her in the shuttle bay, surrounded by crew members who cheered as she stepped onto the deck. She looked exhausted, her uniform torn, her face marked with burns from electrical fires she had fought during the journey. But in her hand, she held the data crystal. Everything Lyra gathered from the archives, Elena said, pressing it into Vane's palm. Not just evidence of the current conspiracy. Complete records of every crime the Inner Circle has committed since their founding. 90,000 years of murder, manipulation, and lies. Vane looked at the small crystal, no larger than his thumbnail. In it was the power to reshape the entire galaxy. The Council will have no choice, he said quietly. With this, we can bring them all to justice. Elena nodded, then swayed on her feet. Vane caught her before she could fall, supporting her as medical personnel rushed forward. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. But even as she spoke, Commander Wells's voice cut through the celebration. Admiral, we have a problem. Chancellor Vorex's ship. It made a jump before we could capture it. We are tracking his trajectory now. Vane's jaw tightened. Where is he going? Wells's face went pale as she studied her display. Unknown coordinates in deep space. But, sir, intelligence reports indicate the Inner Circle maintained a hidden facility in that region. A weapons depot. What kind of weapons? Wells's hands trembled as she pulled up classified files that had been recovered from the broadcast data. They called it the Cleanser, a device capable of destabilizing stellar cores. It can destroy entire star systems. The celebration died instantly. Crew members stared at their commander with horror in their eyes. And Vorax is heading there now? Yes, sir. Wells swallowed hard. And based on his trajectory, once he has the weapon, she did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what Chancellor Vorax would target. Earth. Humanity S homeworld. 4 billion lives. The cradle of their civilization. And a madman with the power to destroy it all. The Grand Tribunal of the Galactic Council had never seen a day like this. In 90,000 years of careful deliberation and measured judgment, nothing had prepared its members for the chaos that now consumed them. Admiral Marcus Vane stood once again in the gravity well at the chamber's center, but this time he was not alone. Behind him, representatives from the Thesari, the Meridians, the Vandrel, and a dozen other species that had suffered under the Inner Circle's rule, stood in solidarity with humanity. Before them, High Arbiter Calveth struggled to maintain order as accusations flew from every direction. "You knew," a Thesari delegate shouted at the assembled Inner Circle members. "You knew what they were doing, and you did nothing." "We demand trials," a Meridian survivor called out. "Justice for our ancestors who were murdered by these monsters." Calveth raised his crystalline appendages, calling for silence. The chamber quieted, but the anger remained, simmering beneath the surface like lava, waiting to erupt. "Admiral Vane," Calveth said, his voice weary in a way Vane had never heard before. "You stand accused of violating 17 Council treaties. You entered Valorian space with a war fleet. You engaged in military action without authorization. Whatever the crimes of the Inner Circle, you have also broken our laws." Vane nodded slowly. "I did, and I would do it again." Gasps echoed through the chamber. 90,000 years, Vane continued, his voice carrying to every corner of T. "He vast space. That is how long your council has existed. And for 90,000 years, you have allowed a shadow government to manipulate, murder, and destroy any species that might challenge the established order. You call it peace. We call it oppression." He turned, addressing not just Calveth, but every delegate in the chamber. "Humanity was new to the stars. We were naive. We believed in the ideals you claim to represent: justice, cooperation, mutual protection. And when those ideals were threatened, we acted. Not because we wanted war, but because some things are worth fighting for." The chamber fell silent as his words sank in. Species that had trusted the Council for millennia now saw it with new eyes. The comfortable certainties of galactic civilization had shattered, and in their place remained only hard questions. But even as the Council grappled with the truth, a desperate chase was unfolding in the darkness between stars. Commander Diana Wells led a task force of the fastest ships humanity had, pushing their engines far beyond safe limits in pursuit of Chancellor Vorax. Behind her came vessels from the Thesari and the Vandrel, species that understood what was at stake. If Vorax reached the hidden weapons depot, if he activated the cleanser, Earth would die. 4 billion lives extinguished in an instant. The cradle of human civilization reduced to a ring of debris orbiting a dying sun. Wells would not let that happen. "Increase speed to maximum emergency," she ordered. "We will worry about the damage later." The ship screamed through faster-than-light space, reality bending around them as they pushed the boundaries of physics. Crew members collapsed at their stations, overwhelmed by the strain. But no one asked to stop. Everyone understood the stakes. They emerged at the edge of a system dominated by a dying red giant, its ancient light painting everything in shades of blood. Before them floated the hidden depot, a station that should not have existed, built in secret over centuries to house a weapon that should never have been created. And there, already docking with the station, was Chancellor Vorax's ship. "He is inside," the sensor officer reported. "Life signs show him moving toward the central chamber." Wells activated her communication channel. All ships, we are boarding that station. I need volunteers for the assault team. Every hand on every ship went up. They breached the depot through 3 separate airlocks, overwhelming the automated defenses with sheer numbers. Wells led the main team, advancing through corridors that pulsed with the strange energy of the weapon they sought to stop. They found Vorex in the control room, his clawed hands moving across a holographic interface as he initialized the cleanser's targeting systems. On the massive display before him, Earth rotated slowly, its oceans blue and innocent, its cities glittering with the lights of human civilization. "Stop," Wells commanded, her weapon raised. "Step away from the controls." Vorex turned, and there was madness in his reptilian eyes. "You have destroyed everything," he hissed. 90,000 years of order. 90,000 years of peace. The galaxy will descend into chaos because of you. "We destroyed a lie," Wells replied, "and we will build something better in its place." "You will build nothing." Vorex's claw hovered over the activation command. "Your world dies here. Your species ends. And the galaxy will remember what happens to those who defy the natural order." Wells fired. The plasma bolt struck Vorex in the chest, sending him crashing backward against the control panel. His claw scraped across the interface as he fell, activating sequences that should never have been touched. Alarm screamed. Warning lights flooded the chamber with red. On the display, a countdown began. "The weapon is arming," a Vandrel technician shouted. "We have 2 minutes before it fires." Wells sprinted to the controls, her fingers flying across unfamiliar symbols. Nothing worked. Every command she entered was rejected. The system had locked into its final sequence. "Can we destroy it?" she demanded. The Vandrel shook his head. "The weapon draws power from the star itself. If we damage it now, the feedback will trigger an immediate discharge. The effect would be the same. 90 seconds. Earth spun on the display, oblivious to the death racing toward it. Wells closed her eyes, forcing herself to think. There had to be something. Some override. Some failsafe. No one built a weapon without a way to stop it. "The targeting systems," she said suddenly. "Can we change the target?" The Vandrel's eyes widened. "Perhaps. If we redirect the discharge somewhere harmless. Do it. Point it at empty space. Point it at the sun. I do not care where, just not Earth." 60 seconds. The Vandrel and Wells worked together, rerouting targeting protocols, while the rest of the assault team held off automated defense systems that had activated to protect the weapon. 30 seconds. The targeting array shifted, moving away from the blue dot that was Earth and toward the dying red giant at the system's heart. 15 seconds. The new coordinates locked into place. The cleanser fired, but instead of streaking toward Earth, the massive beam of destructive energy plunged into the heart of the ancient star. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star convulsed, its surface rippling with titanic forces that even the weapons designers had not anticipated. "Everyone out," Wells shouted. "The star is going nova." They ran. They launched their ships. They engaged faster-than-light drives at distances that should have been impossible. Behind them, the dying star collapsed in on itself, dragging the weapons depot and everything it contained into oblivion. When they emerged at safe distance, exhausted and injured but alive, Wells opened a channel to the Prometheus. "Admiral Vane," she reported, her voice rough with emotion. "The weapon is destroyed. Chancellor Vorex is dead. Earth is safe." On the bridge of the Prometheus, Vane allowed himself a moment to feel the relief that washed over him. Then he returned his attention to the display showing the Grand Tribunal, where the Council was still deliberating humanity's fate. "Commander Wells," he said, "bring everyone home. We have a trial to attend." 3 days later, High Arbiter Colvith announced the Council's decision. the inner circle was dissolved. Its surviving members would face trial for their crimes. The species that had participated in the conspiracy would pay reparations to those they had harmed not. As for humanity, the Council acknowledged that their actions, while technically illegal, had prevented a greater injustice. All charges were dismissed, but more than that, humanity was offered a seat on a newly reformed council, one built on genuine transparency, one where no shadow government could ever rise again. Admiral Vane accepted on behalf of his species, but he made one thing clear: humanity will work with you. We will trade with you. We will help you build something better than what came before, but we will never again be victims. If anyone threatens our people, our worlds, or our future, we will respond with everything we have. He paused, and his smile returned. We hoped you would ask for help. You chose to make us your enemy. Remember that the next time anyone considers crossing humanity. 1 year later, Ambassador Elena Cross walked through the halls of a new station built specifically as a symbol of the galaxy's rebirth. Beside her walked Lyra, whose courage in the archives had helped expose the conspiracy. They passed delegates from species that had once been enemies, now working together on joint projects. Scientific exchanges flourished. Trade routes that had been closed for millennia reopened. It was not perfect. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight, but there was hope. Elena reached a viewing gallery overlooking open space. Stars stretched to infinity in every direction, each one potentially harboring worlds and civilizations humanity had yet to meet. Do you think it was worth it? Lyra asked softly. All the suffering? All the death? Elena considered the question. She remembered the friends she had lost, the battles that had nearly killed her, the moment she had truly believed humanity would be exterminated. I think, she said slowly, that we proved something important, not just to the galaxy, but to ourselves. We are not special because of our technology or our military power. We are special because when we see injustice, we fight it, even when it costs us everything. She turned back to the stars, and that is worth any price. Far away, on a small blue world called Earth, Admiral Vane had retired to a house overlooking the ocean. He spent his days fishing and his nights watching the stars he had fought to protect. One evening, a shuttle landed nearby. Commander Wells stepped out, carrying a bottle of something expensive. The Reformed Council has a request, she said. A species on the outer rim is being threatened. They have asked for humanity's help. Vane poured 2 glasses and handed one to his former officer. And what did humanity say? Wells smiled. We said yes. We always do. They drank together as the sun set over the horizon. And somewhere in the darkness of space, human ships prepared to launch once again, because that was what humanity did. They helped. They fought. They protected Dot, and they never surrendered.